a proposal to unify all regulation of the power sector. It brings me to my big question. Will the National Assembly pass the electricity bill? That's question one. And as a rider to that question, should they even pass that bill? Will they pass the electricity bill? Should they pass the electricity bill? The bill is being proposed as a law, like I said, to unify all regulation of the power sector and to address key lapses in the current regulatory regime. So, for example, a major area that the bill wants to address is the role of state governments in generation, transmission, and distribution. Here's today's big hard fact. Public hearings on the electricity bill are holding today and tomorrow. That's why we're having this conversation. So consider this a public hearing as well. We're holding our own right here on Hard Fact. So we're going to talk to power experts about the pros and cons of the proposals in the bill. We are on the show with the president of Cryo Energy and Gas, Timi Sholeye. He's a friend of the show. Been a long time, Timi. Welcome back to Hard Facts. Hi, Timi. I'm not sure Timi can hear me. Can you hear me, Timi?
Hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi. Is the internet connection good?
Yeah, it's good. It's great. I can hear you very clearly. Okay. We're also expecting the former chairman of NERC, Dr. Sam Amadi, to join us on the show. Hopefully he joins in time. He just left a TV interview where he went to talk about this same thing. So we do hope he joins us on the show. Lagos, let's also hear from you. What are your questions about power sector reform? Women, call us on 01465 7190. 01465 Men, call us on 0700 993 993. Timi, there's some back and forth right now between some state governors and the National Assembly over this bill. First of all, what are states currently allowed and not allowed to do in power generation, transmission, and distribution? Let's start there.
So, opinions on this vary quite substantially.
Okay.
Right? So, I don't know if you've ever had Ayo Ekpo on your show.
Yes, I have.
Yes. So, he has really rather, I wouldn't even say it's an extreme view. I would say I agree with it, which is, and he's an august lawyer. He's been a commissioner for justice. And his view is that because so I guess the way the Nigerian constitution goes, there's some things that are on the exclusive list. Right? National defense, all of these things. Let's leave Amotekun aside, it's police. All of that are exclusive powers of the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
Then there are things that are on what we call the concurrent list. And a lot of this has to do with, I think, some aspects of education, at tertiary levels, etc., which is the federal government can do this and the state government can do this.
Mm-hmm.
We have a legal doctrine that's called coverage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so once a state government is allowed to do things that are on the concurrent list, unless the federal government wants to do something, and so it's like your big brother has said this is how it will be. I don't know, in the sexist Nigerian way, because I noticed you have two lines for men and women. Mommy rules the house unless daddy says something else. Function, right? So. And electricity falls under that. When we passed the Electric Sector Power Recovery Act, Electric Sector Electric Power Sector Reform Act in 2005, the federal government came in and said, this is what we want to do. And so by our legal doctrine, now that they've spoken, that's how it has to be. Whereas Lagos, for instance, when they set up Lagos State Electricity Board, it's a law of 1980, Lagos already had its own statute as to how electricity should be dealt with and done in Lagos State.
Right.
So what I would say is that the state government's hands have been legally tied, because where you really see the issue coming is when you ask people for money. They will tell you that you as Lagos State can't do this because it's a federal thing. And the lawyers will give them contradictory opinions. When there are contradictory opinions, no one releases money. I think what the National Assembly is attempting to do is provide some clarity so that state governments can go some way towards figuring out financeable solutions to this end round. Because I'm sure the complaint they've heard from state governments, probably our own Mr. Governor, right, JSO, is that, his bankers are telling him he can't do this. So he must have gone to the National Assembly and said, please pass me a rider that says I can. I can be going on my way.
So to be clear, the Constitution gives state governments the right to set up power stations for generation if they get licenses from NERC, right?
The Constitution says state governments can do it. The federal government has now passed a law dictating the terms under which anybody can do it without making a special provision for state government rights. So the federal government can set up a power plant anywhere it likes. And is in charge of interstate distribution, transmission, all of that. I think what the National Assembly is trying to do is to give the states just a little bit of a leg up to say, okay, we're going to give you some legal cover to say that you can do this on the same basis as the federal government.
I see. Okay. So, if you were giving the job to design Nigeria's power supply architecture and regulatory regime, you're already laughing, what would it look like? Because, would we have one grid? Would we have regional grids? Would we have statewide grids? What would you do?
I used to have a very simple answer to this, which is, of course, the first thing is to just price deregulate. Because what you find when you have efficient markets, my father always tells me about when he was growing up, he used to have to queue for beer. The government owned the breweries and
he used to have to queue for beer? He used to have to queue for beer?
Yes, he used to have to.
Oh.
Yeah, in the 70s, right?
Oh.
Because people were willing to pay 9 naira for beer, but beer, it's like petrol now, right? Like I live on a Walla Walla Road, and you should see my street at the moment. It's like old views, right? And I even saw that the head of NNPC was coming out about deregulation. A massive deregulation would be the only quick solution, considering the Russia and Ukraine situation, right? That is really what I would do. I would say that people who can pay, and again, this is very anti-majoritarian, right? Because what it would mean is the rich would get power, and those who did not have money would not.
Will not, yeah.
Right?
Right.
I think it's until the system develops and, prices come down. The first thing that would happen is prices would go up really quite dramatically. As you would be, and I would be competing with the same power for Michael Dinigan, Banana Island Mansion. Right? When it comes to, I'm just saying, when it comes to ability to pay and willingness to do so, right? The rich would definitely get served first. But it was the only solution I can see that would be workable towards getting widespread power in Nigeria. The reason I feel this way is that the rich have power anyway. It's not like the lights go off in my Tedeniga's house. So the system that we have really only actually punishes the people who do not have capital to buy generators.
Right.
Right? It's not as if you walk into Transcorp Hilton and the lights are off. So when you think to yourself, because I was reading the statistics today, right? Yeah, there are 592 million Africans who have no electricity. Almost a third of those people, a quarter of those people are adjudged to be in Nigeria, Togo, and Niger. So we make up 17% of the world's population, but we are 78% of the people without power. Of like the global population. I don't know, when we come up with the Byzantine structures that we have, I don't know who we think we're punishing. Are we punishing people in Europe where there's 100% access to the grid by obstinacy, or are we punishing ourselves? Are we punishing Macademiga? Or are we punishing ourselves?
Good question. Let me say hello to Dr. Sam Amadi, who has joined us now. Dr. Sam, thank you for dialing into the show.
Thank you.
Before you joined, Timishola and I were discussing this bill being proposed as a law to unify all regulation of the power sector and to address key lapses in the current regulatory regime. So, for example, a major area in the bill wants to address the role of state governments in generation, transmission, and distribution. Now, Lagos, let me remind you that Dr. Sam Amadi used to be the chairman at NERC. Now, Dr. Amadi, under the current law, states are limited in transmission and distribution to areas not covered by the national grid. How effective is this arrangement, and why hasn't it led to state governments investing in building out rural grids, for example?
Well, I think typical of things Nigerians do, we solve problems we don't understand, and we solve them in the ways that will work.
Okay.
So the National Assembly is busy. Everybody likes the notion of more laws. So when things are not working, people say, "Oh, let's go and make rules." So they like it. It gives them a sense of doing well. But which state can involve itself in transmission? So first, transmission is usually a public. It's like express road. It's usually a network that requires huge sunk costs, and because of its non-discriminatory nature, I mean, everybody uses that network. There are small incentives for people to construct it. So it's usually government or, in many countries of the world, non-profits, stakeholders come together and provide transmission access. So the existing rule, which I put up in NEC, the Independent Transmission Network, says that you can, private persons, state government, anybody can build a transmission network where there is no existing transmission service provider. In power, everything is priced, and so efficiency is the key. You can't build dual networks. So you can't have a disco in Lagos. The lines are, this is a code disco, then this line is Sandra Ezekwesili disco line. Only one line, because it's inefficient. So that's why we call it network.
Okay.
But what you see, you can have different suppliers, retailers, using the same line. Just like you can see two different independent rail in London. Train rails are the same train rail, which are managed as a common good. And then you have trains can run on them, pay use of service charge, and charge their customers. So first is to say that the existing framework on transmission is not that bad. What we should be talking about is, for example, you want to create regional grid, meaning you want to break up the Nigerian grid and regionalize them in a way that what happens to one side may not happen to the other side, in a way that it creates competing efficiency. So people can, some states that are able to, can fund expansion and rebuilding of their network and therefore reduce losses and outages. Because so people are talking about regionalizing the grid, basically saying you shouldn't have one transmission grid in Nigeria, you should have multiple grids, but not to the essence of states maybe having their own grid. Again, some of the problems we are dealing with are regulatory problems, which means that oftentimes the network allows for investment by state government. So take, for example, even to talk about distribution. State governors, I licensed Lagos State, they have the IPP, 10 megawatts under Fashola. They put the Island Power Project, they put some of their facilities on their own grid, took them away from a co-disco, dedicated disco. Akwa Ibom has Ibom Power, about 450 megawatts. Rivers had a river IPP before Amechi sold it to solar energy and those stuff. So nothing stops states from participating in generating power, participating in working embedded power for discos to distribute, or where there's no network, electrifying those places and seeking license to distribute off-grid. So the only area that states do not operate is with responsibility to own, manage, build transmission network. And so my point will be, going by the financial state of the states, their project management capabilities, and the fact that even the states are not able to run primary schools, I mean, it's really nonsensical, quote unquote, to think about states running electricity transmission network. I mean,
Timi Sholaye, you had thoughts when Dr. Sam Amadi was speaking. Let me hear them.
Okay. You know how it is. I think like making a dig that states can't run primary schools is like a low blow and really doesn't have a place in this particular conversation. Let me put it like this. Frankly, Lagos State has a big deal of capacity in this area. And when you say like a state like Lagos or Edo should not build its own distribution network within its state, because I feel as if this is a straw man that you've erected, this question of transmission. When someone says that a state within its area can build, a 99 kV distribution network, what does that have to do with transmission? Like, I'm trying to understand, like, the particular point you are making as to why you oppose this move, right? Which is, if you think about it logically, permitting states where they have capacity to set up workable systems, what can be the reasoned person's objection to that? As you have pointed out, I mean, I always thought Ibon Power was only 155 megawatts, but if it's 450, as you say, that's more. That's like a great deal more than I thought that they had been able to. I don't see any particular objection for a state being able to pull itself and its citizens not completely away from the grid or from the transmission system, but to set up a competing distribution network. And I understand the point that you make, because this is the point that Nigerian kind of Soviet era thinking has, right? Which is central planning, which is, of course, in the long run, electricity distribution and even generation to some extent tend towards natural monopolies, but certainly distribution and transmission. But they tend that way. They don't need to start that way, as you can see with the American consolidations, where there were multiple grids. Like Nikola Tesla was running a competing grid to Thomas Edison, both on the island of Manhattan. One didn't. And it really, the idea that this is the special area of the economy in which competition is irrelevant and really regulation and state control should be the word of the day, strikes me as, we're seeing the resurgence of the Soviet Union. So maybe we're going back to communism. But otherwise, I really, truly don't understand kind of what the rational basis for that is. And when you ask the question of duplication, I have 2 generators in my house and a NEPA line. Is that not duplication?
Can I answer him? Okay.
Yes, of course, Dr. Amadi.
I mean, this is not about, okay, you talk about in the US, the US is a capitalist society. There are nowhere, most of the transmission line, and by the way, the evolution of the US electricity market, like other utilities transport, started from private monopoly. The Standard Oils of this world, the
Standard Oil didn't start as a monopoly, though. It became
no.
That's my point.
Timmy, hold on. You make your point. Just write it down. You make your point. Sam, go ahead.
People, can I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
Companies were giving grants. So I'm not just talking about what I don't know. This is where a state I stayed and had PhD from. Okay.
Okay.
And this is something I know very well. Then we are private companies that had grants. So when you talk about monopoly doesn't mean that the state has a law says nobody can compete. Monopoly can arise because of dominance. So they had these rails. And America never had public monopoly. So if you, for example, consider energy or PJ, in New England, that is a transmission company for New England. Now, what are you looking at? You are looking at performance, efficiency. And by the way, you talk about your own generator. Of course, the sunk cost can buy a generator, but think about investment of money to run 2 lines that add no efficiency. Now, the problem of transmission is very simple. If you have a line that is efficient, they carry the power. The power keeps going. Now, what you need is investment, and that's why I made the point that you can say commercialize the Nigerian grid. You can regionalize that grid. If you want to say Lagos is a region, Edo is a region, you have to reformat the market. And by the way, you have a central dispatch, only one place from Osogbo, where power is dispatched. And you're talking about state having grid with a power, we're dealing with 4,000 megawatts, not more than 4,000 megawatts for the whole country, centrally dispatched. Where is the market? Where is what are you transmitting? So this is not about Soviet era anything. If you go to France, go to all over the UK, the nature, I didn't say government must own it, because Nigerians argue by blackmailing. I didn't say it's a public own. I'm saying there is something called efficiency. That if you want to solve a problem, what's the problem of power supply? Lagos is the example I gave you. Lagos generate power. Lagos put all their operations in island mode, which means Lagos is feeding the hospitals, judiciary, secretariat. Now, even abroad, only one distributor carries power to a specific place. But there are so many retailers who sell power to you. So what that means, just like a rail system, is that if you have a disco, if we unbundle a code disco now, a code disco will be a disco that supplies distribution network. We call it wire business. All it does is to provide you the facility. You have your power in IPP. Maybe you build a power plant in Lagos, and you are selling to him in Eko. You drop your power there. You sign up a terms of use of service charge, and then a code disco will charge you disco charge and sell power to you.
Okay.
So I'm not saying just one word. I'm not saying that you cannot privatize, you cannot commercialize, you cannot have individuals. I'm saying that with the economy, with the power, volume of power, and with the challenges you have, it does not. Yes, Lagos may invest billions in a transportation company, but that doesn't become a model that you're going to have efficient states running transmission.
Okay, we have a break coming up in 2 minutes, but Timi, I want to hear your response to Dr. Amadi's point about efficiency. What do you say to that? What do you think about his point about efficiency, Timi?
So perhaps I was a bit sharp before, but he uses the word arise, right? Because these are systems that evolve, right? So when you talk about, the systems that have happened to have evolved abroad, they arose from a series of efficiencies gained over time, right? What I don't like is that the government kills the baby in the cradle, right? By its burdensome regulation. We're not really talking about transmission, and I understand the point that you make about transmission. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. The duplication, one of the companies will fail. Right? That's the big fear, right? If you let 3 people start up distribution, one will fail, right? We've seen Nine Mobile.
And there's a possible component to that failure.
Yeah, okay, so one will fail. Whose business is that apart from the stockholders of that company? What we really need and what is really inefficient is light going off every 5 minutes, or sometimes not coming for days at all. That is the true inefficiency, rather than a distribution system that costs twice what it does elsewhere in the world.
Okay.
The real inefficiency is the lack of electricity.
Okay. We'll come back to you, gentlemen, but we need to take a break. Lagos, don't forget, you can join this conversation. If you have questions, you can ask our guests who have joined us via Zoom. And you can watch this interview on Facebook, on YouTube. Facebook is Nigeria Info 99.3. YouTube is Nigeria Info FM. I'm Sandra Ezekwesili. We have a former chairman of NERC, Dr. Sam Amadi, on the show with us. We also have the president of Cryo Energy and Gas, Timi Shule, friend of the show as well, back on the show talking to us about the power sector. The reason we're having this conversation is because public hearings on the electricity bill are holding today and tomorrow. So we are holding our own public hearing right here on Hard Facts. So 99.3 Nigeria Info. Don't go away. We'll be back after this break.
This is Hard Facts.
For those who want to make the
5:36. I've got two experts on the show today about the pros and cons of the proposals in this bill. This bill is being proposed as a law to unify all regulation of the power sector and to address key lapses in the current regulatory scheme. Public hearings on the electricity bill are holding today and tomorrow. I have the president of Cryo Energy and Gas, Timishileye, on the show with us. I also have a former chairman of NERC, Dr. Sam Amadi, on the show. Dr. Amadi, another provision of the bill is the setting up of an electricity disputes appeals tribunal. Do you agree that this is a necessary addition to the dispute resolution mechanism, or do you think that it's unnecessary? And how much of an obstacle is dispute resolution currently? I'm asking you because you were in the industry for quite a bit. Sam, you're muted.
Sure, good question. I don't think what's a big problem is customer care,
Okay.
not dispute resolution. We have what you call dispute managers and counselors. Before I left as NEC chairman, we got lawyers and economists and engineers. So the market, the Electricity Sector Act says there will be a dispute resolution counselor and dispute advisor. So the panels exist. And these are disputes between market operators.
Okay.
At the level of customers, what you have is a structured borrowing from New Delhi, which works, which is first, customer care at the utility provider. So there's just supposed to be, every disco supposed to have a customer care where then from customer care, it escalates to the forum office. Forum office, by the way, is actually a forum for people who are one, NS engineer, NGO, consumer advocates. They are appointed to sit more like a court. From there, you proceed to NEC. If you're not happy with them, goes to NEC. So in terms of dispute settlement system, it's well established. The NEC sits as a regulator, sits as a panel. Now, I happen to be the chairman of the Senate Technical Committee on Consumer and Competition and Consumer Protection Law. And I designed that law. I led the group.
Okay.
And they have the Competition and Consumer Tribunal set up together by that act, which handles structured conflicts and disputes. So if NEC fails, and that place is manned by a high court judge equivalent with lawyers appointed. So basically, you have an established judicial process. Now, what is missing, what I think this bill should have done, is to create the equivalent of NEC in the states. What that means to say this. I don't think that NEC will have the capacity to manage with retail disputes. So, for example, somebody calls me, since I've left as NEC chairman, who call me from their village. Oh, my meter spoiled. I reported to Disco. 2 weeks, they have not fixed it. That's what we call retail complaint. In the US and elsewhere, you have what they call the Public Utilities Commission. What they do is to carry out customer care for utilities in their state. So, for example, in Lagos, for example, you should have an equivalent of NEC, which means a Lagos state created consumer, not like CPC or advocate, a consumer, an agency with the power to regulate consumer care at the state level. So what that means is NEC regulates market, tariffs, structure, set out for consumer rights and order. Then the state agencies use those standards to now enforce violations and remedial action at the level of retail. So I admit that we need to the structure today is not allowing for picking up those disputes and many ways in which consumers are violated. Even though we have limited power supply, we can have a more improved quality of supply, customer care, dispute management, speed and timely management of those conflicts. At that level, you need the equivalent of the public service commissions, whose job actually, not just for power, for every public utility to manage retail complaints. If you are creating, I'm a lawyer, and a senior lawyer that, and a professor of law, teaching at the university. Look, the legal system, the judicial of this dispute doesn't work. You create a court, special court for corruption, special court for fuel lifting, special court for everything. Yes, some people say you should have a special court to try. That's not the way to go. If you look at UK, if you look at elsewhere, you don't have those specialized courts dealing with failure of service when you have regulators. So you can either create subsidiary state-based regulator to handle the retail complaint side, but not to judicialize this complaint by creating a special court. By the way, those special courts requires a dispute to be framed, brought to court, and when they issue the orders, somebody has to make sure they're enforced. So the fact that instead of going to the Federal High Court, you now go to legislative dispute court does not necessarily mean that service care will improve. Just that the same fact that you have courts managing taxation, revenue courts in Nigeria, different courts, all these courts have jurisdictions, but that does not necessarily translate to service improvement. So what we need is to fix that public service. If you decentralize customer protection to states, then those states will have proximity to manage everyday complaint. I received them, especially a market that is not yet stabilized. So people are going to have service failures here and there.
Okay. Let me come to Timishola. Same question that I asked Dr. Amadi. Do you agree that this is a necessary addition to the dispute resolution mechanism, or do you think it's unnecessary?
I think it's unnecessary. I would say that I agree with him actually about this.
Okay.
Even though, of course, I have a particular point to make, which is that on December 8th, and I guess this goes more to the point I was making previously, which is it's hard to have it both ways.
Okay. Okay, we've lost our connection to Timishola there. But Lagos, you can join the conversation 01465 7190 for women.
States shouldn't be involved in the distribution within their own state, what they want to do or not.
Okay, we lost our connection to you there for a second, but we will come back so that you can keep making your point. Hold on. So Lagos for women 01465 7190, for men 0700 993 993 993. Timmy, back to you.
So on December 8th, the Commissioner of Energy and the governor, so Larry Pisita and Jide Sanwo-Olu, launched the Lagos framework, the Lagos Power Framework, and they posited something called the Lagos Electricity Market. And one of the two of their key, I wish I could share my screen and show you the presentation.
Okay.
They had the Lagos Off-Grid Electricity Agency and then the Lagos Electricity Regulatory Commission, right? Mm-hmm. Which is precisely what Dr. Amadi was talking about.
Right.
And so, when the impetus behind the House of Reps action is to implement things such as what he's saying, which is that there should be a Lagos, it's posited within the proposed law and within the energy infrastructure framework, the infrastructure resource framework, the Lagos Electricity Commission. So I don't understand why you oppose this shift when it's really going in the direction that I think you think it should, which is a lot of these things are functionally state and municipal issues. You know how it is. Why am I going to Abuja? I remember he mentioned the Oshobo thing. So I don't remember the last time you were there. It's probably been 4 or 5 years since I was there. But you should walk into this room sometime. I went to Oshobo, I went to the Groves, and then and to see the Nika, the Susan Venga. And I said, okay, let me stop off for the Oshobo. It was really quite shocking, right? It's there was a room with a paper map and pins on it, and they have 4 or 5 cell phones, and then they're calling, oh, this one, drop power down here, put turbine XYZ down here, etc. I don't know, is that the wonderful?
Wait, hold on, Timmy. Is that how it works? Is that how the central dispatch in Oshobo works, Timmy?
Each of them has 4 or 5 a mobile phone, at least this was at the time.
Okay.
Strapped together with rubber bands, right? And it's calling someone. The person is not picking up. It's not picking up. Grid collapse. Thanks a lot. Is that the transmission system we want?
So what would it take? What would it take to replicate that same dispatch in multiple regions? Because it sounds very.
You'd have to close all the loops of the grid, and it would just be the grid as we have it is not financially viable. I don't know how you really like go about case
Dr. Amadi, talk to me in 2 minutes because I have all of Lagos calling me. They want to join this conversation. So 2 minutes, Dr. Amadi.
Very simple. Look, Sandra, nothing I say here is saying that the system is working. I'm saying it's not working. Don't replicate what is not working.
Okay.
For example, Shobo, you're supposed to have a scanner. You're supposed to have SCADA system, SCADA, which is a technology base. For example, we privatize, we unbundled without understanding. When you unbundle, you create coordination problem. So you use technology to backstop it. You are more efficient as NEPA than as an unbundled sector with no technology. So it's correct. The people will use phone, drop, because they have no SCADA. Now, to implement SCADA, that's the point I'm making.
It's shocking. You have to see it sometime. It's almost comical.
You're trying to multiply 36 Oshobo when you don't even have the capacity. Hold on, let me finish now. I'm not saying that things are efficient. I'm saying the answer to the crisis is a radical review, not this, out of the hip kind of legalization. Oh, for example, NEC was there. You create NEMSA. Doing what? Doing coding of transformer. When
I agree with
SON, when SON is there, certifying transformer.
Okay.
Why do we create agencies? So I agree with you.
Lagos is calling me. Let me talk to Lagos, Dr. Amadi. 99.3. Hello. Thanks for calling.
Sandra, good evening.
Good evening. Good to have you on the show, sir. What's your name? Sorry about that. Call back if you can. 99.3. Hello.
Hello, Sandra.
Good to have you on the show. What's your name, ma'am?
My name is Sandra.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm very well. Long time no hear.
I do. Sandra, you know what? I don't know. They should just talk to us in the layman's, language.
Okay.
What I want is for whoever is generating should distribute. And then the state should stop being lazy. The state should just generate and then distribute. You understand?
Okay.
If they can, Fashola did, when he was attacking the federal government then, he was generating and at some point he was like getting it into the necessary areas that he needed then. That's what it should be. When we are talking of, federalism and all that, these are the places we should touch. And then things will start taking the norm of what it should be. You understand? Whatever they are saying, when you get to that and then all those things, that they off the light, then Sule will say, hey, then they put it on, like they say they are doing at Oshobo now. On, and then they say, yeah, up NEPA. That it's that they're just joking. I call them and they say, we can't buy, or the ones we bought, we can't pay. This is what they tell us. I call them all the time. They say, we can't pay or we can't buy. The ones we bought, people are not paying. Then meter people. Good afternoon, Sandra.
Good afternoon, Sandra. Thanks for calling. 99.3, hello.
I greet you, Sandra.
I greet you back. Thanks for calling.
Sorry. I think my internet cut out.
Sandra, hello.
Yes, I'm hearing you. Go ahead.
Sandra, Nigerians are not interested in all these dramas that we are talking on this power. What Nigeria needs is how they will be having 24-hour power supply. That is what Nigeria needs. And I will not lie to you. Look, the solution is with us. Look at the north. I don't think wires, the northerners need to connect wire, carry wire, or petrol or gas. I think the sun there can give them power. The sun alone in the north can give them power. Are you getting my point?
Okay.
So why can't you just make and then carry local government? Let local government supply light. Let's take supply light. All this one that government just amass everything to itself. I think the federal government purposely just know that you want to suffer Nigerians. So Nigerians are not interested in this grammar. What they are interested in how they will be getting power supply. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much for calling. 99.3, hello.
Hello.
Thanks for calling. Go ahead.
Yes. Am I speaking to Sandra?
Yes, this is Sandra. You're 99.3. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm David from Amuwo.
David, you've got 1 minute. Go ahead.
My concern is this KJ electricity.
Okay.
They supply us power few seconds or few hours in a month. And it totally is not up to 2 days. And they will give us rough deal. And we apply for
prepaid meter.
Unfortunately, that's not what we're discussing at the moment, but we'll have a different day when we have conversations about the service of the distribution companies. Bawo from Ikorodu says, this is a question and a suggestion. Why can't we democratize electricity in Nigeria? Why can't households be provided with strong solar installations? Then the said household pays a light bill, which is actually payment for the solar power installment. Then the general grid generated power by states, federal, zoos, whoever can be distributed to industries or firms. Because it's clear that grid power isn't enough for both industries and domestic. Who's going to take that first? Timmy, do you want to take that first? You're muted, Timmy. Unmute yourself.
Hello?
Sorry, that service exists. There are a number of companies that do that. Daystar, Rentals.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just saying, there's even one backed by MTN.
Mm-hmm.
I forget what it's called right now, but it has what he's positing exists.
Sam?
I totally agree with him. I mean, you see, the caller's view is simple. I mean, we can open this market up. There's no point, small grids all over the world. The technology enables us, even pro-consumers, people can generate power, solar, and set to the grid. So we should be flexible to allow people to generate whatever they can generate, even 3 megawatts, 5 megawatts, stop asking for licensing, generate, send to the market. So we combine flexibility. There's nothing that stops that happening.
We've got Harry from Yaba on WhatsApp who says, Mr. Ahmadi is a good man, really concerned that states will spend a lot in providing electricity and some shareholders will not get dividend if their companies invest in power sector. More Catholic than the Pope. I don't know what that means, but thanks for your message. We've got more messages here. Okpekende says, Sandra, it's a welcome development, bringing generation of electricity into concurrent lists instead of executive lists. This is long overdue, which is why I must give it to Tinubu as a former governor of Lagos State trying to create a power project in Lagos State along Sele Ijesha Way. Also, kudos to the, well, that's not what we're talking about right now, but thank you very much for your message. Someone says if solar power becomes really affordable, all the discos will be doing promo begging consumers to be on their network because we won't be having crazy bills anymore. That's Fred with that message there. All right, Fred. Fred also sent us a bunch of other messages, but unfortunately we don't have the time to get into it. Dr. Sam Ahmadi, Timi Sholaye, thank you for your time. There's never enough time to get into power because it's such a vast industry. So the conversation there is very multifaceted. But I do hope I can drag you both back into the show with me. Maybe also bring in Eyoekwe as well, who's also very passionate about the power sector. And we can have more insightful...
His views are even more extreme than mine.
We'll have more insightful conversations about Nigeria's power sector. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
All right, Lagos. We will bring you conversations with Rufai next. That's happening after the news at 6. In the meantime, follow me on social media. S. Ezekwesili on Twitter. S. Ezekwesili on Instagram. Sandra Ezekwesili on Facebook. Those were your hard facts, Lagos. Have yourselves a fantastic, fantastic Monday evening.
More news and information coming up. We'll be 99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's